What's up, YouTube family? Lou here with another Godlike Collectibles video. And today's video, I wanted to talk about the All Star game. Now, the reason I'm talking about it today is because I was doing some research. You know, as many of you know, I collect a lot of Latino players, especially Puerto Rican players. And what I wanted to do was a kind of a little bit of a deep dive into the All Star game, and about the Puerto Rican players who were All Stars and stuff like that. Who was like the first to get into the All Star game? Who was the first to start in the All Star game? And things of that nature. And as I was digging into the information and finding stuff out, I was like excited to share the information I was finding. And so going into the history of this, the All-Star game started giving MVPs out, I believe in 1962, and I think Maury Wills was the first MVP. Now, as I was looking into the game, I started realizing to see who was the first one that was on a roster for All-Star, as far as a Puerto Rican player. And I started digging into that. But before I go into that, I want to like kind of start at the beginning, and that's with Hiram Bithorn. Hiram Bithorn in 1942 was the first Puerto Rican player to come up with the Chicago Cubs, and he was basically the guy who ended up opening that door for Puerto Rican players. Now, he wasn't an Afro-Latino. He was a light-skinned complexion Puerto Rican player, but he came up in 1942. He pitched for a few years. He was the first Puerto Rican to be in both the American League and the National League. And I got a card here to represent him from. This is the 1972 Puerto Rico sticker card of his. And he died back in the 50s. He was killed by a police officer in Mexico, from the story that I had read. But he was the guy who started it all. The first Puerto Rican to play in the major leagues. And then, fast forward, the first Hall of Famer that's Puerto Rican was Roberto Clemente. Now, here's a 1972 Topps card of his. Now, he was the one to open the door for the Hall of Famers, being the first Puerto Rican inducted into the Hall of Fame. And so these two guys are pioneers in the Puerto Rican culture, because he was the first one to get into the league. He was the first one to get voted into the Hall of Fame. And believe it or not, many people would think that Clemente would have been the first Puerto Rican to be in an All-Star game, which was what I thought, but I was wrong. And I'm going to show who were the first Puerto Ricans to be in an All-Star game, and or to be on a roster in an All-Star game. So, to my surprise, as I was digging into it, I found out that in the 1955 All-Star game, you had Vic Power, who was with the Kansas City Athletics at the time, and you had Luis Arroyo, who was with the Cardinals at the time. Now, amazingly enough, Arroyo's rookie card wasn't until 1956, even though he played in 1955. So here's a look at Luis Arroyo's rookie card. And this is from 1956 Topps. This has the gray back. Now, Arroyo was selected into the All-Star game. That year, he won 11 games, lost 8. Even though his earned run average was high, he had a 4.19 earned run average. But interesting enough, with him, not only was he the first Puerto Rican to play for the Cardinals, but he's also the first Puerto Rican to play for the New York Yankees. And he also went to the All Star game and won the World Series with the Yankees. In '61, he ended up winning 15 games as a reliever with the New York Yankees, which is pretty unheard of, especially in today's day, for a reliever to have 15 wins. You can't even get starters to win 15 games in this age. So for him to win 15 games as a reliever was pretty impressive back then. He was 15-5 back in with the Yankees in '61. So here's his rookie card, and then the other guy was Vic Power, and here's his rookie card from 1954 with the well, actually, is the Philadelphia Athletics here. But these two guys were the first to be on an All-Star game roster that were Puerto Rican, and that was in 1955. Now, the All-Star MVPs, like I said, were not given out until later on in '62. But the first Puerto Rican to start in an All-Star game was not those two guys, but the first to start in an All-Star game was none other than Orlando Cepeda. When he started for the he was with the San Francisco Giants, and he started at first base. And he is the first Puerto Rican player to start in an All-Star game back in 1959 when he was selected. Here's his 1958 rookie card. It's a beautiful card. I actually purchased this in last year's National off of my buddy James, Elite Hunters. It's a beautiful, beautiful card. Beautiful condition. I don't know why it has that grade, but, I'll never know. But it's a gorgeous card. One of my favorite cards in my collection. Then, looking at my notes here, because I had to write some of this down. There was just a lot going on here. So, the first Puerto Rican to win an All-Star MVP, which I thought would have been Clemente or Cepeda, but it wasn't them. The first Puerto Rican to win an All-Star game was in 1997 was Sandy Alomar Jr. And here's a Sandy Alomar Jr. card. I really like this Stadium Club card of his. So he won it in '97. And funny enough, his brother won it in '98. So they were the first back-to-back brothers. And here's Robbie Alomar, who won it in '98. This is the refractor of the Bowman's Best. So we had those two brothers winning back-to-back '97 and '98. And then in 1998, if I'm not mistaken, 97, 98. I thought I wrote it down. I guess I didn't. Oh, 97. I did write it down. In 1997, there were 8 Puerto Rican players in the All-Star roster. This is the most that has ever been voted in amongst Puerto Rican players. Now, I already had showed you guys, it was, I showed you Sandy Alomar Jr., right, who ended up getting the MVP that year. You also had his brother Robbie that was on that team. So you had these two. Then you had Pudge Rodriguez also in that All-Star game. Here's his rookie card. Then you had Edgar Martinez, who was on that team as well. Here's an autographed copy of his rookie card from Score 1989. Then you had Carlos Baerga, who was on that roster. Here's a nice autographed Carlos Baerga. And this was given to me as a gift as well by my boy Hugo, Signs of the Pastime. Shout out to him. There's a nice card too. You had Javi Lopez, who was also an all-star catcher, National League, when he was with the Braves. So here's a Fleer medal of Javi Lopez, who was on that team. Ruben Sierra was on that team. Bernie Williams, who I just did, If I Can Only Have One episode of Bernie, so check that out when you get the chance. And last but not least, Juan Gonzalez. Here's his Hypnotized from 1999 Skybox Thunder, the Hypnotized set. So yeah, so I wanted to make this video because I thought it was a cool little history on Puerto Rican players and the significance of the All-Star game, and showing who the first two were to be in an All-Star game. I thought it was pretty exciting to know that it was one of my favorite players that I collect that was in representing Puerto Rico in the All-Star game. And then you had Luis Arroyo was also a surprise to me, because being that his rookie card was in 56, I didn't expect that. But I just wanted to share that with you guys today, a little Puerto Rico history. And I'll leave you with that, and leave you with the two legends right here, Hiram Bidhorn and Roberto Clemente. Peace. Take care. God bless. Be safe. Peace.